Welcome to Destination Eat, Drink, the travel channel for foodies. I'm Brent Peterson. I'm an American living in Portugal with some more Americans living in Portugal. Today we're going to talk about life in Portugal with my friends Susan and Tim. Why don't you introduce yourselves?
I'm Tim Darcy. We came from Dayton, Ohio.
And I'm Susan. We've been here about almost 6 years.
Yeah, you guys have been here pretty much longer than most people that I know, maybe the longest of Americans that I know. And I'm always curious, talking to people who have been here for a while, what they've noticed as far as changes in Portugal and in our city of Setúbal specifically. What have you guys noticed?
A lot of renovations since we first got here. The city has been, I don't want to say cleaned up, but you can see a lot of energy being put into the quality of life stuff, with additional buildings going up and renovations going up, especially in the Peniche, the Old Town area.
A lot of that, a lot more public art than there was when we first got here.
Yes.
Also, a lot more English-speaking expats.
Yeah, it's definitely become, our city has become a hotbed of Americans, I think, North Americans and people from other places. And, you know, there's good and bad that comes with that, and we can talk about that a little bit. I think one thing that I've noticed, you know, we've been here for almost 3 years, is that, and I don't know if this is a change as much as something that I really enjoy about our city, is that the effort that the city puts into putting on cultural events.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You know, like festivals, and you know, there's festivals related to food. There's festivals related to the arts. It's really cool. There's especially in the summer. There's always something to do.
There's always something going on someplace.
And if you're between venues for different concerts during culture festivals, there are buskers on every corner, and some pretty good quality buskers actually. So there's music everywhere. There's dance. It's just art as far as you can see. It's great.
Let's talk a little bit about arriving in Portugal. And I think one thing that I find interesting is when people tell me how they determined that they were going to move to Portugal. Not our city specifically of Setúbal, but how did you decide on Portugal? Because there are other places that you could decide to go.
We first thought about South America because, I don't know, we thought being in the same time zone as our family, our kids and my mother and our friends would be somehow convenient. But the more we learned about certain countries in South America that we were exploring, it was a lot that just didn't feel like home to us. It didn't seem like what we were really looking for. And when we really got down to it, we talked about, we really wanted a European lifestyle, the cafes and the easy travel from one country to another. And so we went to a workshop, a weekend workshop about becoming an expat, and went to a seminar about Portugal, and everything we learned, just check. It was really important. We did our research, and everything that was important to us was rated top in Portugal.
And we could do it. There are a number of countries in Europe, especially, that you can immigrate to.
Yeah, you got to ask yourself two questions. One, where do I want to go? And two, who wants us to come?
Exactly.
You know, because if those two things don't match up.
Right.
Exactly.
What was on your checklist? You said Portugal ticked every box.
Well, first was we wanted a place where we could live year-round, because we didn't want the bother or the expense of maintaining a separate residence in the United States. So we wanted this to be a permanent year-round move. And there aren't a lot of countries that accept Americans for 365 days a year. So that was number one on our list. We were looking for access to health care, and most EU countries certainly would have that anyway. We were looking for easy access to other countries, and, you know, there's a big airport just right up the road. So we were looking for public transportation and a certain welcomingness, a sort of acceptance of strangers coming in and living in their country. And some countries rated higher than others for that, and Portugal was top of the list. They have a very welcoming attitude.
So people say that the Portuguese are welcoming, and I have to say they definitely are. But what has your experience been like? Because anyone can say that they're welcoming, but it may be a different experience when you get there. Tim, what have you found?
Everyone is really very welcoming, even if they know no English. And I knew at that time no Portuguese, although now I know minuscule more than I did then. But everyone was willing to help, and I know the first person that showed us our first apartment, he drove us from the airport. It was arranged. He knew no English, but we got along fine. We got to our apartment, and he was telling me some of the technical stuff on where the water heater was and everything. And yeah, we understood each other.
I think you're seeing in the media, if you follow this type of stuff, there's quite a bit of backlash that is being reported for not only tourists. I mean, if you see anything about Barcelona or Venice or places like this, there's a certain amount of backlash going on against tourism. But also, you're seeing people who are saying, hey, these people who are coming in are resulting in higher prices for housing and things for us. Have you noticed any of that type of pushback recently?
I haven't necessarily straight away. And maybe we're living in a bubble here in Setúbal.
It's always what I wonder about. Are we in a bubble? Because I don't experience it either.
I think prices have gone up since we got here. We still have a really good deal on our apartment, which I probably shouldn't say out loud. And prices have gone up generally around it, but Setúbal really isn't a great tourist destination, except for people who want to go to the beach, and they're spending their time at the beach. So I'm going to say no. I haven't seen it.
Yeah. You hear reports about it in Lisbon, and like I said, so far I haven't seen a lot of it. How about you, Susan?
Really, I haven't. And I asked the Portuguese people that we're privileged to know on a personal basis if they've heard that kind of stuff, if their friends are skeptical of these legions of non-Portuguese speaking people coming into their country. And my friends tell me some people are grumbling about it, but not in a really toxic way. They're mostly expressing fear that we might bring changes that make them uncomfortable, but they're also expressing appreciation that more people are eating in restaurants, and more people are buying groceries, and more people are spending money around here, and that elevates everybody. So yeah. I don't hear that kind of pushback, although it happens when strangers move into town, when there gets to be so many of them. The locals have a right to feel uncomfortable because maybe the strangers are starting to change the local culture, and that's something we try very hard not to do, is have a negative impact on the culture here.
It's our mantra, me and Karen, is we want to bend to Portugal. We don't want Portugal to bend to us.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
But I don't think everyone comes with that mindset.
No, I don't think they do. I think and the ones we know most are the Americans who come in thinking that, yeah, everyone should bend to them. We know there are a couple of comments I've heard around saying, well, they're doing this. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, it's Portugal. Yeah. They're allowed to. It's their country.
Exactly. Yeah. They've been around a heck of a lot longer than we have.
Yeah.
So maybe take a step back. Maybe you'll learn something.
Well, and it's a frame of mind you have to get into, and it probably takes a little bit of practice. I mean, every now and then I'll find things that I think drive me crazy. But, I stop and think, well, they've been putting in these stones on the thing for a lot longer than the United States has, and I think they could do it better, but, no one's asked me yet.
Right. You're not on the committee.
No.
Yeah, it's like, sometimes I'll be standing in line somewhere at a store, and the cashier, I'm waiting with my stuff, and the cashier is in a seemingly endless conversation with the person in front of me about their life and and how the kids are and how the grandkids are, and every aunt and uncle that and every person they've ever known in their life. And I can feel it in the back of my neck start to go, and I'm like, mellow out.
Exactly.
You'll get there when you get there.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
I mean, if we came here in part because the Portuguese had a reputation of being friendly, then what we're seeing there is an example. They're being friendly to the strangers in their grocery line, or
you want a slower pace of life.
Exactly.
That's it.
We're here. We're retired. We have no real fixed schedule, and is it going to kill me to spend 3 minutes in a grocery line? No. So you just sort of put it all in perspective and go with the flow.
It's that American mindset that's, has been ingrained in my brain for 50 plus years. And now it's like, wait a minute, I got to start thinking in a different way.
But I think part of what pushed us to want to live outside that country, our country of birth, was because we had started to reject some of that American mindset before we even came here. We wanted a slower life. We wanted to own fewer things. We wanted to rent instead of buy because it just makes life more leisurely. There were a lot of things that we really bucked the trend in the United States, and that might have been our prep for living here. It just has made the adjustment so much easier for us.
Yeah, for us too. We had been downsizing for several years prior, as we had made moves to several different cities, and after we had done that a couple of times, we came to realize we don't need all this crap.
Right. Yeah.
It's not necessary. And so we arrived here with 3 bags each, and that was it. I see these videos of people arriving in Portugal with just stacks and stacks of stuff, or people who get a shipping container and bring it over. And they open up the shipping container, and there's like a rake in there. Guess what? They have rakes here.
Yeah.
You didn't have to ship it across the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised at some people I've heard about that have brought things across. That my thinking was, whatever we get, we can buy it there, because they have to figure out how to buy stuff here. So.
Right. You mentioned the kids. You mentioned Susan, your mother, and how did they take the news that you're leaving? All right, hasta la vista. See you later.
I don't think anybody was surprised because we've always done things that sort of push the envelope. But our kids were sad. They knew they were going to miss us, but they were supportive, and they were not that we didn't ask their permission, but they gave it anyway. And my mother was just joyous. She was really excited. She said, "I've lived a great life, and I want you guys to go out and find your perfect retirement." And I hear they have video chats now, and we can just do that 2 or 3 times a week, and I'll be happy. And that's what we've done. We talk to everybody frequently, and we go back twice a year, and it's worked out really well. Everybody's fine with having the kids. The kids are happy that we're living here so that they can come visit, and Mom is just happy because we're happy. So.
Yeah. And you're going to go see your mom in what, a couple of
months
now?
Yeah,
a couple of months now.
Yeah.
So you're making regular trips.
As long as she's alive, I'm going to go back twice a year and spend quality time with her because she's just so much fun to be around. So
nice. And has the family come over here to see you?
We have one daughter who is in a financial position at home to come over here, and she's come 3 times. Oh, she's coming here for her 3rd time over Thanksgiving. So
Miss Olivia, who I've met.
Miss Olivia, yeah, she's our trailblazer. Yeah.
Nice. People always ask me, what does it cost? How much does it cost to live there? Is it much less expensive? Are things more expensive? And my answer is, in general, things are less expensive.
Yeah.
The things that we spend money on,
Right. Exactly.
are less expensive. We don't have a car, so they're not that expensive.
Exactly.
What's your observation?
Well, I agree with you. It seems a lot less expensive. especially for the stuff we spend money on, which, I think the biggest thing at home would have been, the combination of home internet, cell phones, cable TV, and we also have a landline, which I'm sure they're going away. No one uses it, but it came with the package. And, for that and the 2 cell phones and everything, we're paying about 70 euros a month.
Yeah.
So, it's way less than...
2 cell phones, home internet, home TV, and the landline.
Which we use to call the U.S. Evenings and weekends.
That's right.
It's
Evenings
free.
and weekends you can call for free. The only time it ever rings in my house, because I must have the same package as you guys. The only time it ever is when the cable company calls me to try and upgrade my package. That's the only time I ever hear that phone ring. I'm like, wait, what is that thing? What is that noise?
It took us a while the first time it rang. We did have a friend of Swiss Sister Susan's.
A friend of mine, she was our exchange student when I was in high school. She lives in Switzerland. And one afternoon, our home phone rang, and we couldn't figure out what that noise was.
Right.
And
first time it happened, you're like, what is that?
Finally, we remembered, we have a phone hiding behind the TV. So I answered the phone, and Marianne said, "Good morning," or "Hello, Susan, how is Portugal?" And I went, how did you get this? I don't even know what this number is. Somehow, I don't know, maybe I once knew what the number was and I gave it to her, but she calls now every couple months and we have a nice little chat. But that's the only time it rings, that and the cable company trying to sell us more. Yeah.
What about other expenses? So you owned a home when you were in Ohio, so I guess you can't compare rent in the U.S. to renting here. For us, the rent has been, we've been renting in the U.S. for probably probably 3 years before we came here. And the rent we're paying half of what we were paying in the U.S.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we've been renting for several years before we moved here, and the rent we're paying now about 2/3 what we were paying in our last apartment. But we have. I think we're getting a deal, and we were living in a city that has notoriously low rents. So in Ohio, the rents haven't reached what they are on the coast of the United States. But we're paying a little bit less in rent here. And we get a lot for that. We get 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms.
You guys have a huge place.
We have a very nice apartment.
And 2 balconies.
Yeah.
On each side,
I love that.
Which is fantastic for the cross ventilation.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I really wish we had in our place. We don't have that cross ventilation, so it tends to get hotter in the summer and sometimes a little bit cooler in the winter because I can't get good ventilation going.
We have a sunset balcony so we can watch the sun go down, and somebody tells me we could also watch the sun come up on the other side of the building, but I can't prove that by personal experience.
When does that happen?
I think it's really early in the day.
I just get up and there's the sun. And what about rent, what about utilities, other utilities, water, heat?
I think water's maybe a little bit more expensive. No, water's cheaper, electric's a little more expensive than what we were paying in the States. But
not significant. I don't think.
No, it's not.
I know a lot of people here complain about the cost of water, but I've seen the bills come by and...
Yeah, we're paying about $14 a month for water.
Okay.
So that's
less than what we're paying. We're paying like $25, and that's low compared to what we were paying twice that much in the U.S. for water.
We were paying about $50 a month, I think, in the U.S. So I'm really happy with our water bill here. There's certain things, little like sometimes electronics or home appliances, I think, are more expensive here than they are in the States. Not much else. It's the thing that we really appreciate is the cost of dining out, because I retired from cooking, 20 years ago, and so we eat out quite a bit, and it's always a pleasure, and it's always really reasonable. I don't think we could buy groceries for a lot less than we spend eating out.
Dining out's really inexpensive, and when you compare it to the U.S., we're going back in a couple of weeks here, And last time we were back, it was just sticker shock
Oh yeah.
to eating out. And even before it was much cheaper here. Now it's gone up a little bit here in Portugal, but not compared to what it's gone up in the United States.
Yeah.
Right.
What are some of your favorite kinds of places to go and eat here in our town?
Well, I must say, going back to your first question about what have we seen change since we've been here, it's the number and quality of restaurants.
Yeah.
I mean, every week there's some new entrepreneur opening yet another style of food. There's everything from, I don't know, Thai to Italian to Chinese to Indian to, Balkan. We have Balkan Cafe. They're just, it's all so good. And what we really like is trying the new places and just getting a variety. It's just never the same thing twice, unlike when I was cooking. I had 5 recipes. So, we really like the variety.
And there's a lot of American influence food, not that I go toward that, because the grilled fish here is spectacular. But there's a new smokehouse that he has the smokers out front, which are spectacular. So there's a lot of that, which
American.
Which is not necessarily why I would go there, although I do like barbecue. But there are also, the typical Portuguese cuisine I never really fell in love with. I think it's beginning to catch on and evolve into something better. I mean, before I think it was a lot of stews that were comfort food, was whatever was left over went into the stew pot, and by the end of the week it was interesting.
But the pastelerias are amazing.
Yes, true. Yes.
The sweets, the pastries, the tarts, the cakes, all of that stuff are incredible.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're beautiful to look at. The textures are great. The flavors are great. So I just try not to go inside anymore. It's way too dangerous.
Dozens of good ones here in our little town.
We have 4 in our apartment block.
Right.
I don't know that we've been, one just opened, so we'll have to get down there somehow, or some reason we'll have to come. But you shouldn't be able to starve if you're living here in Portugal.
The barbecue place that you mentioned, Karen and I went there and had some beer because they're paired with a craft brewery.
Right.
So they have some craft beer there. But I was talking to the owner and I said to him, I'm always concerned when these places come out and it seems like they're focusing on the expat community. Because even though we're in this bubble where we know seemingly everybody, I don't think there's enough of us to support some of these restaurants. And so what I said to him was, how have you found the reception from the Portuguese people? Because that's what's going to make or break your place, right? Absolutely. And so he pointed outside. They had those picnic tables outside, 4 tables, and he goes, Portuguese, 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 Portuguese.
Yes, that's so good.
And I said, that's fascinating. And then I thought about it, and I told our mutual friend Elena this. I said, I wonder if it's because the Portuguese love pork so much because they're doing pork barbecue, right? And she said, maybe that's it. But she also said, we love all the American stuff. Like the hamburger places have become very popular here. So if you open a place that's maybe focused on this American-style food, the Portugues have such an affinity for it that they may show up. So I thought that was an interesting take.
And I think too that this is what is going to take to have the Portuguese cuisine evolve. Because I think under the Salazar regime and for the past couple of generations, it was just, that's what they had to eat, so they never really developed I don't want to say fancy, but their own cuisine other than the comfort food.
It's rustic cuisine.
Yeah. Right.
It's rustic cuisine, and Portugal, you can't forget, was traditionally the poorest country in Europe, and is still, even though it's doing better, is still not a wealthy country by any stretch. So most Portuguese can't afford to go out and get barbecue.
Right. But they'll now have the new taste coming into their palate. They'll be able to start making adjustments to
This
their
is
own
this
cuisine.
idea of transplanted cuisine that I love, and you see it kind of with the Brazilians coming in and exerting their influence on the cuisine here.
Yeah.
And now everyone loves those crepes that they make with the tapioca starch. It's great, and it makes for such a more vibrant eating experience.
Right, exactly.
We had got such a kick out of probably about a year and a half ago that we heard there was a new Indian restaurant in town within walking distance of our place. So we took a field trip to this new restaurant, and we were expecting, Indian food. And the first 2 pages of this big menu that he gave us, that the owner gave us, was typical Indian food. And then we turn the page and there's Wiener Schnitzel and Greek gyros and Mediterranean stuff all over the place. Pizza and pasta and hamburgers, and it was like a tour of the world in his menu. And I don't know how he can do it, but we've sampled so many of the other nations that he serves there, and they're all pretty darn good. It's just.
I think I know the place you're talking about. We were there last week, and I've never tried their other stuff, but their Indian food is really, really good.
Yeah.
They have a vegetarian schnitzel, so if you want to be a little adventuresome, try a vegetarian schnitzel. It's probably the best you'll find in Portugal.
Yeah. I remember we got a vegetarian schnitzel in Berlin, and it was breaded zucchini. So, I'm like,
nice.
All right, I guess we're having this. So it was good. What about your language skills? Have you, you said, I think the word you used, Tim, was minuscule.
Yeah, because I can't think of anything smaller.
How have you come along in 6 years?
Well, in 6 years, a lot better. We had private tutoring. We took the government class, so I know a little bit of, how to do it. I can put together sentences. I can, work with my translator before I go into a store to get something complicated, like a head of lettuce. But listening to it, like I've said before, the written language and reading it is one thing. Listening to people talk, it's like a different language.
Yeah.
It's just...
How is this on the page the same as what I'm hearing from you?
And one of our teachers went through a whole sentence about, going to the beach or whatever. And it was a pretty good lengthy sentence. And she said, well, the way we say that is prior, which is beach. And,
she wrote the sentence on the blackboard. And she said each word, and she said, but really, we dropped this syllable because it's the same as the first syllable. The last syllable here is the same as the first syllable. So we drop those 2 syllables, and we eliminate this word entirely, and we swallow the end of this word so you don't really hear it. Yeah. And pretty soon we're down to like a syllable and a half when you had 7 or 8 words.
Right.
And wow.
So that's going to take a little more time, I think.
Yeah. And then there's the dialects. It's like here in Setúbal they have their own dialect.
Yes.
And then I was at one point we were taking the class as well, and I was starting to feel good about myself and my progress. And we went up north, and I'm trying out my Portuguese, and they're just looking at me like, what are you saying? I have no idea, and of course every country has dialects and accents and things like that, but it's just, that part is a little bit disheartening, but, practice every day, and, you just, I went in there and I ordered our food in there, and, the woman behind the counter, I think she was Brazilian, and she understood.
Yeah.
But when she gave me my change, she said, "You're welcome." So she knew. She knew what she was dealing with.
They always know.
They always know. There's any number of times you go in and I practice going in and they say all these words, and then they want to confirm it back to me in English.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I got it right.
Yeah.
So
at least they understood.
Yeah.
At least they understood. So.
And they're everybody seems very encouraging and pleased when we make our feeble attempt at speaking Portuguese.
Very forgiving.
Yeah,
Very forgiving. Yeah. I think that gets back to the friendliness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Portugal.
exactly.
I mean, you will just bump into people and have strangers, and have conversations with them. I was walking down the street yesterday, and a couple of cars started honking at each other because of a dispute in the roundabout, which happens. And this guy was probably in his 70s and wanted to discuss the situation with these two cars. I'm like, a couple of words, but because that's just the way it is, man. People want to talk to you. People want to interact with you, and it's really delightful, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
When I had one of the shocks of my life when we landed in Lisbon. We'd never been to Portugal before we moved here, and when we landed in Lisbon and we were in the Uber car from the airport to our new apartment, I was reading billboards, and I thought, in that 7-hour flight from the United States, I have been rendered illiterate. I can't, there's not a word on these billboards that I understand. And I had a little momentary panic, like what, I've never been illiterate since I was, a very small child. How are we going to function here? And when I look back at that moment and all the effort we've put into learning this language, we'll never be fluent. We'll never probably have deep conversations with people, no matter how much we'd like to in their native tongue. But we're so much farther along than we were. We can write and read a lot of stuff. We can speak say a lot of basic conversational statements and questions. And I never thought I'd be this far along. So I'm grateful for the progress we've made, knowing it'll never get a lot better.
It's a good story, and it gives hope to all of us who have been here and who have been struggling, because I think at some point stuff starts to click a little bit.
Yeah.
And I worry that I'll never be fluent as well. But just being able to converse on an everyday level and be able to do your daily chores, and sometimes people actually answer you back in Portuguese,
Yeah.
Right.
which feels like a victory.
That's true. It really does. That's always
It's the little
like
victories, right?
It's like winning a prize. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for speaking to us about your life in Portugal. I think your insights are incredibly valuable for folks who are interested in Portugal or maybe even thinking about making the move. So Susan and Tim Darcy, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you. Maybe a year from now we can do it all in Portuguese.
Okay. Keep the dream alive, Susan.
Thank you, Fred.
Yes, thank you.
Off of Peniche, there's this island called Berlenga, Berlenga.
Yep, on the Atlantic Ocean, 45-minute boat ride.
45-minute boat ride, and you can buy your tickets online, but there's all these kiosks down there.
Okay.
And so you can just go and decide what suits you best. My recommendation is do the boat ride and add in the cave tour. Because what happens is you get off the boat, they put you on a smaller boat, and you go through these caves. You go into some caves, and then you go through the tunnel, which is a 270-meter tunnel, and you come out the other side, and it's spectacular.
And then you see those stone hedges, right? The rock formation.
Yeah,
of
you see the elephant
things.
rock and all that stuff. And you see the fort from the water, which is really amazing.
And what, where on Peniche do you, because the place I've seen in Peniche, I didn't notice anything about boat rides or kiosks or tickets.
There's a harbor right in the city. It's down by the fort.
Down by the fort, and that's the other thing you should do too, is the fort in the museum there.
Because they have in the fort, they have the Museum of the Resistance, which was a jail for political prisoners during Salazar's time.
Wow. Oh, cool.
And it is fascinating what
Wow.
went down. They talk about the whole thing.
That's so cool.
It's really good. Like